Hello and welcome. I am Steve Clemens, editor-at-large of The Hill. Today is the final day of the 2020 Republican National Convention. Even though the event itself has been largely virtual, we at The Hill have tried to make sure you're not missing out on any of the news and commentary, and we've had a lot of fun with this. I've been getting my fix of politics from our daily events and our convention subs at thehill.com. This morning, we're going to go look ahead at tonight's main event, President Trump's speech and his plan to win in November. I'd like to thank our sponsor, the American Petroleum Institute, for its support. Before we get underway, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at The Hill Events using the hashtag #TheHill2020. We are live. As with any live stream, you could experience occasional trouble with the video. Refreshing the page should, in most cases, fix the problem. Later on in the show, we're going to be speaking with Mercedes Schlapp, senior advisor to the Trump campaign. But to get us started, we're joined by two political veterans. John Fieri is a partner of EFB Advocacy, a boutique, I wouldn't call it a boutique, a great lobbying and strategic advocacy firm. He's also a columnist right here at The Hill. Jennifer Carroll is the national spokesperson for Maggie's List, a political action committee focused on electing conservative women to federal public office. Jennifer is also a former lieutenant governor of Florida. Welcome to you both. Let me just start out, Jennifer, do you know what you and I have in common with Pee Wee Herman, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and Mother Teresa?
And we know how to dance?
No, I was told it's your birthday today.
It is.
And it's mine, too. And it's Pee Wee Herman, and it's Lyndon Baines Johnson. I mean, it kind of explains people to me. Anyway, it's great to see you both. John, it's been a long time. Great to see you. Let me just start and ask John to give us a snapshot of how you think the Republicans have done this week in shaping a message that will be compelling for more than Donald Trump's base. I mean, I'd be interested in sort of see how you think this plays across the different quadrants of America.
You know, Steve, it's really good to see you, and thanks for having me back on. I remember when I was at a Hill event in Cleveland, and I said 4 years ago that Donald Trump was going to win, and everybody thought that I was off my rocker, that I was nuts. Actually, I think I had family members that wanted to put me in some sort of a sanitarium or funny farm because they thought I was so crazy. I think that President Trump has constructed the same type of coalition that he had 4 years ago, and that is the people who want to change Washington and don't think he's been able to completely change it because of the power of the swamp. And I think that he is someone that people look at. I've been watching this event on C-SPAN because I wanted to watch it unfiltered. And I watched the call-ins after the C-SPAN concludes the RNC, and all across the country, people are like, we want Trump to stay in because we want him to complete the work. And I think that's why he's going to win. And I think he's going to expand the coalition because it's going to be now a working class party of all races, all creeds, but people who, want to work for a living, get their fingernails dirty, and they want to get paid for their work. And I think that's where he's been successful.
I want to jump to Jennifer in a moment and just get a snapshot from her as well about how she is doing in terms of bringing women into elected Republican slots. But before that, John, you're a straight shooter, and conventions are usually not times when either party talk about their warts. But when I listen to you, said, when you think about this White House and you think about some of the people who have been around President Trump, whether it's, Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, Michael Cohen, there have been a lot of problems with people who have been part of this Trump franchise. How have they been able to shake that off? Because whenever I hear the swamp and I hear those words, these other, things go off in my brain. I say, well, what about these others? How do folks like you, of your persuasion, sort of square that?
Well, I'm reading this book by Michael Lewis about the start of the Trump administration.
Yeah, it's called The Fifth Risk.
The Fifth Risk.
Yeah.
And what the interesting thing about, from my perspective, is he is a complete outsider. And he really doesn't know what he doesn't know. And I think that people like that about him, that he's going in with completely fresh eyes. And he made some mistakes on hiring. There's no doubt about it. I think Steve Bannon was not a great hire for him. I think that Paul Manafort has turned out to be a disastrous hire for him. But the whole establishment turned their back on him, said, we're not going to help this guy out. And so he was forced to look to anybody to get some help. And he turned to a guy like Paul Manafort, who had vast and deep experience in electoral politics. And I think it was a mistake, and I think that he would acknowledge it was a mistake.
Thank you. Well, Jennifer, you are, have taken the lead in helping to support, identify, fund campaigns for women to get in, conservative women to get into elected office. Maggie's List is named after Margaret Chase Smith, the first woman elected to Congress. How are you doing? How many do you have in your camp to move forward?
We've had 44 endorsed candidates that we set forth in a primary to support during the election. And one of our biggest stars, but I shouldn't say the biggest star, but we have many big stars in our primary winners, is Kimberly Klacik. And she won her primary in for the Baltimore congressional race. And we have seen now that she's exposed the issues of full Democrat leadership in these urban areas that have not done a great job. And we're proud to support the female candidates that are running on the conservative side. We have over 281% increase in these female candidates running in the 2020 election compared to what we've had in the past. And this is a 100th commemoration of women's suffrage. So the conservative side is really happy that we are breaking these milestones during this commemorative year. But our female candidates are young, they're diverse, and they bring a quality to them to the table that I believe that's going to help both the House and Senate to really move the ball forward and help President Trump, to help families, to help middle-class America. And that's one of the things that the president has done, is to be a disruptor. That he came in as an outsider, that people thought he would not have the bandwidth to do the exorbitant amount of work that he's done to really make changes in such a short period of time. Well, we've had presidents that's lasted 8 years and didn't do 1/4 of what President Trump has been able to accomplish. So our female candidates embrace that conservative principles of states' rights, of our constitutional rights, and want to bring about solutions to work with people who are willing to work with them to truly bring America forward and in a prosperous way.
Jennifer, I'm just going to be very straight with you. I think it's really very important what you're doing. You're broadening a tent. You're bringing in new people. I'm just wondering how some of the folks that you're bringing in feel about the president's occasional language when he's doing battle with powerful political women, because it seems to be occasionally laced with some pretty tough words, sometimes some demeaning words about women. And is this something you try and affect as you're sitting inside Republican circles? Do you think the Republican Party needs to modify some of its posture to make this a more comfortable place for the women leaders you're bringing in?
One of the things I would say with Donald Trump is that he's consistent with everyone, women or men. His language is what it is. As a matter of fact, his wife, Melania Trump, mentioned early on that her husband's language is raw. And he is the person that he is, and he communicates the way he does. And if folks don't either understand or recognize that at this point, then they'll never. The thing is, I come from a military background. I spent 20 years in the United States Navy, retired from the Navy. When I joined the Navy in the early 70s, it was a time I was in the aviation community, and it was a time where men did not experience women working with them in the military, in the aviation community. So I was in the forefront of it and experienced languages like that or talk like that in a workspace. But it was up to the women who did not want to hear the language presented in such a way to bring it forward to leadership or the people that were speaking that way to make the cultural change. And if individuals are impacted or affected by how the president speaks, then they need to take it directly to him and bring that up with him and not tweet about it or go on media to bash him about it. The only way to really resolve an issue is to go right to the source of where you think the issue lies. And if that's with the president, then our female candidates are strong enough to have the communication with the president to let them know what their concerns are.
Thank you for that. John, you have been around conventions and polls and all this for a long time, and I remember your words. I remember when you said them in 2016 about where the election would go. Kellyanne Conway, was one of the people who found and talked about the hidden voter in polls that she saw, and she was very much an outlier from other polls. what is the architecture of that? Is that hidden voter still out there strongly as you see it?
Steve, thanks for the question. The political culture is such these days that it's very, very difficult if you're a Trump supporter who lives in a suburb, especially a wealthy suburb, or in the city I live in on Capitol Hill, to express your politics if you support Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, fully 62% of the American people have said they don't feel comfortable in their workplace or outside in their social settings expressing their political views because of fear of retribution. I think those aren't liberals who are saying that. Those are conservatives who are saying that. And we have a cancel culture out there that makes it extremely perilous for people to go out and express their political views, especially if they're just normal Americans. You can get fired for wearing the wrong hat. You can get canceled for wearing the wrong hat, a MAGA hat, on those steps of the Lincoln Memorial. So this is where you find the hidden voter. I think the other thing that the president has on his side is time. I think as you see the economy start to come back again, you see the coronavirus start to ebb, which all demonstrations show that it is starting to ebb. We're learning to deal with it a lot more effectively. I think you'll see that not only will the folks who feel more comfortable come out and say, hey, listen, I think I support Donald Trump. I think you'll see the polls tighten, as polls often do. And one thing I would note is the betting markets had Joe Biden win 70% of the time. They're now tighter than ever. And now it's an almost even bet for President Trump or for Joe Biden to win in the betting markets, which I think tells you a lot.
Right. Well, listen, we just have 2 minutes, Pete, and I would love to get both a snapshot of what you think we're going to hear from the president tonight. John just wrote a great op-ed in The Hill, if I can brag about it for a minute, and said that the speech has to have 2 P's, peace and prosperity, and 3 F's, faith, family, and freedom. And let me just, he wrote the op-ed, but let me just start with Jennifer for a moment and go to John just a minute each and say, how does he deliver that message, but also reflect, on things like George Floyd, on Jacob Blake, and on the economic strife in the country right now? How does he get those equities right of being responsive to the stress in our nation, but also be uplifting? Jennifer?
Well, the bottom line is all week long is being built to this, and the message for the last 3 days have built up to this moment where individuals listening to the RNC convention should understand by now the importance of every American is to this president. The work that he does on a daily basis benefits every person in this country, and his heart bleeds for those that are impacted in a negative way, whether it's by law enforcement, the economy, our safety and security, our borders. And so President Trump, I believe, in his speech tonight will really lay out the case why he should be reelected. Folks should support him because of the work that he's done before. He has a great track record for less than 4 years building our economy, making individuals' 401k increase, making individuals have a safety and security with their families and with our border, and making sure that he always puts the American public first. And in recent times, we haven't heard any president truly make their platform around the people of this country and the safety and security of this country. He's protected the military, increased opportunities for our veterans. When he came into office, a lot of things were in shambles. Our veterans were dying. They weren't being seen. He turned that around. Our military was struggling. He turned that around. And that's what he's going to expose tonight.
Thank you. John?
Steve, thank you for citing my column. I want to focus on 1 F, and that is faith. And I'm not talking about religious faith. I'm talking about faith in the American people, faith in America, faith that we can get through all this, terrible coronavirus and all this terrible unrest if we believe in America and the American people. I truly believe that if people get to know one another, despite their political differences, despite their religious differences, despite their differences in color or creed or whatever, that they will like each other. And if they love America, they'll come together. And I think that's what the president needs to focus on, faith in the American people and the American exceptionalism.
Thank you. John, Jennifer, I've learned a lot. I always learn from John. I look forward to learning more from Jennifer. Jennifer Carroll, national spokesman for Maggie's List, former lieutenant governor of Florida. And, of course, John Feary, columnist at The Hill, and also with the great firm EFB Advisory. I love the Feary theory in the back, in your background. Thank you both for joining us today, and we'll see how this goes tonight.
Thanks,
Thanks, Steve.